Hey guys, and welcome to another tips video for Battlefield 2042. Today is not so much about general tips, but more about weapons and weapon setups, and which weapons are the best after all the changes that have been made with Update 4.0. And after trying out all available weapons with different setups in the last few days, I recognized 5 of them that are significantly better than before. Not only in their default setups, but even more with the improved attachments. So I will go through them from 5 to 1 and also show you my favorite setups. But now let's start with the number 5, and that's the PBX-45, the first available SMG. It wasn't too bad before and a very balanced weapon, perfectly made for new players, but fully upgraded with the new attachment setups, it's even better, especially on mid-range. For my personal setup, I'm using the Fusion Holo optics, the standard issue extended mag, the BCG light grip and the Champion muzzle brake. The optics are of course personal preference, but for an SMG I think a close range is the best. Also, the higher the zoom of your scope is, the more problems you will have to control the recoil of a weapon because the scope is shaking more. So better use the lowest zoom rate that works for you. The standard issue extended magazine is a bit better than the close combat mag in my opinion, because it has a bit more firepower and range, and with the close combat the weapon felt a bit too weak for me in most situations. The BCG light grip is for more accuracy in aimed fire and loses a little accuracy in hip fire, but since the hip fire of this weapon is pretty okay by default, I don't mind about the small loss in accuracy here. The increased accuracy in aimed fire was more important for me since this makes the weapon stronger on mid-range. In addition, I used the Champion muzzle brake that reduces the vertical recoil. The PBX doesn't have that much recoil, at least not as much as the PP29 for example, but I found it much easier to play with the recoil reduction, especially on range. On place number 4, we have the AK-24, and that's my absolute favorite at the moment. It was good before the update already, but not that easy to play. Now, with the new attachments, it's much easier to control and to handle, and definitely the best assault rifle in the game for almost all ranges. For the AK, I'm using a mix between recoil control and close range accuracy in my setup, so I went with the Fusion Holo as usual, the standard issue drum magazine for maximum ammo capacity, the Rattlesnake light grip for better hipfire accuracy, and the Champion muzzle brake again, also for a lower vertical recoil. And I think the Champion is the only thing that really makes sense on this weapon, because you still have to reduce a bit of the vertical recoil. For the grip, I think that the Rattlesnake is good because the weapon has a good range anyhow, and if you tap fire it or shoot it in single fire, you can hit almost anything with a lot of precision on mid and long range. But on close range I found that without the increased hipfire accuracy, the AK was a bit too weak. With the grip it works pretty well. I also couldn't recognize much of a loss in aim down sights accuracy, so that's why I chose the Rattlesnake instead of the laser, because the laser would be detectable. But that's not a general recommendation, it always depends on the weapon and their default stats, but for the AK it works fine. If you should still have problems controlling the recoil on this weapon and also any other ones, I will do a video specifically about this topic next week, so stay tuned if you want to know more about this as well. Next up is weapon number 3, and that's the DM7. This is a rifle I was struggling with in the last few weeks, but now it became one of my favorites. Back then, when Battlefield 2042 was released, this was one of the strongest weapons in the game with a lot less recoil and a very high accuracy. But it was nerfed very quickly and was then much harder to play. Now with the additional accuracy stat on the attachments, the DM7 is almost back at the old strength, much easier to handle and much more fun to play. For my setup I'm using the Fusion Holo again, and this time this is important and I explain why in a second. As a magazine I go with the standard issue for more firepower and range, the BCG light grip for aim down sights accuracy, and the Champion muzzle brake again for less vertical recoil. And I think this setup works great on the weapon, reduces the base recoil it has and brings back the accuracy it used to have back after release. The Fusion Holo optics are important here because of the low zoom, because then this weapon is much easier to control. And you might think that a zoom scope would fit this weapon better since it's a DMR and more made for mid and long range. And I would agree for other kinds of DMRs, but for the DM7, the Fusion Holo or any other kind of close range scope works much better and leaves the weapon with almost no recoil. And that makes it really good on almost all ranges, so that's definitely one that surprised me a lot, and I'm really happy it's one of the best weapons in the game again. By the way, I would also recommend to do the masteries on these weapons now when they are one of the best, cause the weapon balance will definitely change again in the future and some of these weapons might not be that good in a few months. We've seen this with other weapons so far, like the PP29 that was nerfed pretty fast but is still okay luckily, or the AC42 that was basically nerfed to death with the last update and is in my opinion one of the worst weapons in the game now, so keep that in mind. But now let's go ahead with number 2, which is the MCS 880, the first shotgun. And this was one of the worst weapons in 2042 for a very long time, because if you miss your shot, you will most likely lose the gunfight. And with the lower accuracy it had before, it was more likely to miss a shot. Now this weapon feels much better and much more balanced. Not overpowered, but also not like a pain in the butt anymore. Especially when defending objectives in Breakthrough, where there's a lot of close range combat, this weapon can really shine, even better than the 12M auto. For my setup, I went with the Fusion Holo again, but the iron sight works pretty good here as well, since you will mostly fire it from the hip anyhow. For the ammo, I prefer the 01 buckshot because it seems the most balanced for all ranges, but if you want a bit more close combat power, try the buckshot 4 or the Flechette shell. Both have a bit wider spread than the 01 buckshot, so it's easier to do one-shot kills up close. With the buckshot 01, you have to aim a little more precise and there's a higher chance of only dealing damage instead of getting the one-shot kill. And with a low rate of fire, you might not be able to do the second shot every time. What's really important for this weapon as well, in my opinion, is the laser to improve the hipfire accuracy, because that's actually what makes this weapon so strong. The rattlesnake grip is not available here, so you can only use the laser. Just keep in mind that it can be seen by other players. For the barrel, I would stick to the factory barrel, because the heavy suppressor takes away a lot of firepower and then it feels a bit like shooting marshmallows, at least for me. And last but not least, there is number 1. The best weapon in the game at the moment and in my opinion absolutely overpowered, and I would probably hate myself for recommending it, but anyhow, here it is, the K30. Yeah, I know it was good before the update already, but play it now. It's just ridiculous how good this weapon is, and especially for this one, I say it again, master it now. It will surely be nerfed within the next weeks. For my preferred setup, I have the Fusion Holo equipped again, what a surprise, the standard issue drum mag for maximum ammo capacity, and that's definitely necessary with this high rate of fire. Then again, the laser sight for more hipfire accuracy, because the rattlesnake grip is not available here as well. And then the tactical compensator for even more accuracy, but on a slight loss of recoil control. But since this weapon doesn't have much recoil anyhow, and you will mostly fire it from the hip, the loss in recoil control is not a big problem. So on close range, you can simply go full Rambo and dump your whole magazine in hipfire and the bullets seem to magically hit everything around you. Okay, it's not that bad, but comes pretty close. The standard issue rounds give the weapon the necessary firepower and range, so even on more than close range, it's a very reliable weapon that is easy to handle. If you want, you can also set it to burst fire, but I personally never use it, not even on mid-range. In this case, I simply tap fire it for more precision. That's it for today. I hope you have fun trying out all the weapons and this video helps you to find the right setups for them as well. And if it does, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm the Catwoman and you are awesome.